Hi everyone, Scott Powell here again with insights on how to study the history of now. In my first video in this series, I introduced you to the following idea. The world we live in is an interconnected agglomeration of nearly 200 countries that constitute 10 major cultural blocks, predominated by 5 cardinal cultures, among which the United States has primacy. Understanding the world this way transforms this unmanageably complex patchwork into this workable sum. As I mentioned in my last video, being able to understand the world in this way hinges on identifying that the history of most countries needs to be studied by treating them as members of cultural blocks. Although a country like the United States needs to be studied individually because of its vast military power, the sheer size of its economy, and its wide cultural influence, most countries are just not important enough to study in that way. This has nothing to do with how nice the people are there. I've been to plenty of wonderful little countries, from Jamaica to Cyprus, from Singapore to Malta, but clearly such countries, or even larger ones like Spain and Italy, just don't impact history in a significant way as separate countries. Now, although it's true that we can often simply ignore smaller countries when studying history without missing anything important, sometimes smaller countries have a way of impacting the world through alliances or associations that play a combined role in shaping the world. The European Union is the best example of this type of association, which I call a cultural bloc. I define a cultural bloc as a group of countries that imparts a cognitively significant impulse to history at any particular time. That formulation is very specific, and it is unique to my philosophy of history, which takes the issue of historical cognition very seriously. I will have more to say about that soon, but for now, let's look at the EU as an example. The European Union is the most cohesive of the world's cultural blocs because its member states are bound together by a commitment to an ideological cause known as supranationalism. A commitment to supranationalism, in this case, means a willingness to place the greater good of Europe as a whole above the good of the nation. Supra means over and above. Talk about an important idea. Europe, as separate nations, almost destroyed itself in the world wars, and now it's trying to impart a new impulse to history as a union, which ultimately seeks to become a United States of Europe. Knowing this about Europe is what allows us to study its history in such a way that we don't get bogged down in the minutiae of its long story. Instead, what we can do is use the fundamental question, how did the world come to be this way? When we do, even the history of Europe becomes accessible. It becomes the story of the Europe of nations, a shifting patchwork of national rivals that emerged after the fall of Rome, which could not achieve peaceful coexistence or union until it reached a dead end in the world wars. Which is a story you can learn in greater detail in the history of now, and which I can help you with in the seminar series on the book starting in March. I hope to see you there. In the meantime, stay tuned for more insights into present centrism in this video series.